You're gotta blow a job interview as fast as you can. What do you do? So what exactly is the drug test able to detect? Right, double quotation mark. Is it a 10 panel or just 5? Ask about the sexual harassment policy. Is it like super strict? Say that you think the company is dumb and you're only there because your mother made you. More effective the older you are. I read a comment once about how a GameStop employee was about to interview a teenager and the kid's mum accosted the interviewer first, telling him that she was making her kid get this job because he was so lazy and not hardworking and thought it would teach him some good skills. Totally ruined his chance at getting the job, lol. Be myself. That has a proven track record. No. Show up drinking a beer and when the interviewer brings it up apologetically say, "Oh, sorry bud. How rude of me," and proceed to pull another warm beer out of my purse and toss it to them. I'd hire you. Scratch your ass then go for the handshake. Don't forget to sniff your fingers before going for the handshake. I read that as blowjob an interview, which inspires me to say offer a blowjob. It was rather suspiciously titled, wasn't it? Just don't show up. Edit. This is how I would bomb a job interview because I'd be too anxious to do anything more drastic, lol. Yes. Nowadays they'd probably reach out to reschedule or something. This is also the least effort. But if you're collecting unemployment it could be used against you. Who knows, right? I guess this is blowing an interview if you're already there. So the next closest thing is just leaving without a word. Sit down, reach into my backpack and pop open a beer. What kind of beer? This reminds me of an old joke. Interviewer, one last question. What would you say is your biggest flaw? Job seeker, well, I'm brutally honest. Interviewer, I see. Well really, I think that's really not too much of a flaw. Job seeker, I don't give a frick what you think. This reminds me of an old joke. Interviewer, one last question. What would you say is your biggest flaw? I'd appear with my well-loved plushie and let it do the interview for me. If you hire me, you hire Rainbow-2. She's my life partner and sexual muse. And you wouldn't dare come between us. It'd be really funny if I got this job. Totally not because I would commit arson or anything. But it'd be really funny. Start talking about how Hitler was just misunderstood. That really he was doing God's work. How close are we to a school zone? Exactly. I think you need to make this a little more sus though. Showing up to interview with a pet parrot on your shoulder does not blow the interview. My wife worked for a popular online shoe retailer that starts with a Z and interviewed a guy who showed up like this. She gave him the job because who wouldn't want to work with a dude that would show up to an interview with a bird on their shoulder? I went into a local store and the dude talking to me had a parakeet chilling on his shoulder. I didn't even recognize until he bent down to pick something up. I once got down to a final interview with a big TV company and blew it because they asked me what I thought of their Saturday night schedule. Then I proceeded to dissect everything they aired and why it was basically mindless garbage for idiots. The interview didn't last long after that. Basically, the fastest way to freak up an interview is be honest. Light a cigarette. Union. I had to scroll too far for this one. My first thought was tell them I'm pro union. I got headhunted by DHS a long while back. They wanted me to work in IT. Something to do with port security. I had no intention of taking the job, so I started off by saying that I could not possibly work for Homeland Security because I don't have a mustache. He then started talking about ports and I was inspired by the wire to ask about what happens if I were to stumble across a container filled with Russian girls. I asked him if it was as many as you can fit in your car kind of thing. Dress up as the original Agent Smith. I get bonus points to start talking in his manner. I also refer to the interviewer as Mr. Anderson and be as condescending as possible. Interviewer, so why do you want to work for us? Ask salary range and then say that's it. That happened at my job. Scream the N-word. That will get you a managerial position in Alabama or Louisiana. I'd wear my Star Trek uniform. Not gonna lie, I'd probably hire you. Show up in a shirt with a photo of a cat's face on it and ask for a chair for the urn you're carrying. When they ask why, say it's for your dead cat's ashes. His name was Frickface. When their jaws drop open, explain how you took in this poor cat whose owner died and was found a week later being eaten by his starving cat. Fun fact, that's a true story of how a woman blew an interview. Except, the job was in the Caribbean and they flew her out there, and she took the urn to her dinner and asked for a place setting. Hold up, that's enough internet for today. I unzip my pants and duck slap the interviewer. Toss in an F-bomb during greetings. Hello, I'm the hiring manager Marge. Well, how the frick are you, Marge? That should work. Don't worry, I'm in anger management. Show up in BDSM gear. Show up to the interview. Conducted by your potential female boss. Wearing a short sleeve button down shirt with a print pattern that reads "Who's your daddy?" I didn't do this, but it actually happened to a boss of mine. Who's your daddy would be proper dirtbag spelling actually. Blow the interviewer. NGH. Is there a union? So you guys are okay with nudity, right? Software engineer here. This is very specific to my field. We have coding interviews where we are given a problem to solve and have to do it right there in front of the interviewer. These problems are typically leet code problems, which are entertaining puzzles until you are under the pressure of an interview with a time crunch and no reference materials. I refuse to do these interviews. I had an interview the other day which I cancelled because they were doing one of these. After the fact I realized what I should have done. I should have gone in then when they asked the question, do like any real software engineer would do, and Google the answer and copy and paste the code from the first result. I wouldn't have gotten the job, but it would have been a fun story. I'm a software engineer and recently had a similar interview. I was deeply unhappy in my current position and started talking to headhunters on LinkedIn, as one does. So this guy sets up an interview. I accept it and Google the company. Lo and behold, headhunter lied his ass off, and multiple things I told him I was looking for should have DQ'd this company. I tell him to cancel and he asks me to go through with it anyways or it would appear rude, so I show up. Interviewer is an I used to code 10 years ago type of manager who brought along an engineer. First question is what version of the language my current team is on. I don't know, but I'm familiar X, Y. Say meow at the end of each sentence. Ask them if they know anything about the hidden theories and lore behind Pokemon and info dump abstract Pokemon knowledge on them until they kick me out. This is my favorite any weird topic. I'll tell you all about my soft skills when I've finished explaining how I restored my aunt's dining table. Ask for the Wi-Fi pass as the first thing. My porn download is stuck, and I need something for after the interview. Just tell them you don't think it's a good fit. I've done that. It's okay to be honest with potential employers. While standing, turn around so back is facing interviewer, pull down trousers and underwear, bend down and place fingers on toes, fart. I read it, you got a blowjob interview. Unzips. You won't believe how loud it is when I drop this on a desk. Could you move that folder, it will muffle the sound. Fart. Ask what the pay is. Apparently they do not like that, but they do love asking how much you currently get paid. Many years ago I went through a mass hiring session. 1,500 people showed up. There was a brief screening interview and then applicants would move on to the second interview based on that first interview. I was passed on to the second round and was sitting waiting my turn. Behind me was a curtain and on the other side was someone doing the first interviews. Interviewer asked a guy about his last job and why he left. He said, you gotta understand, I sweat. I mean, I sweat a lot. I was a waiter and I would bring a plate of food to someone and drip into their dinner. They didn't like that. Without hesitation the interviewer called out, next. Arrive in sandals. I show up without an interpreter. Ask the interviewer if I can get higher pay rate if I toss their salad. Scream until sore. Confidently say I'm the N-word lover. This will both disgust and completely offend both racists as well as normal well-adjusted people. A lot of people on questions like this will aim too hard towards one side or the other. This isn't a surefire method, because you never really know which side the other person might be on. I instead hit both sides as hard as possible. All the racist will hear is lover and all the normal people will hear the N-word, and all the people in the middle will recognize that. People on both sides will take issue with what I've said, so no one wins in the end. And here I thought it said, you got a blowjob interview as fast as you can. I'm thinking, well, that's the porn industry I suppose. Light a cigarette and tell them your bedbugs are really affecting your ability to concentrate while scratching yourself furiously. Or just don't turn up. 0 time spent. Fast AF. Don't say doing your wife. Don't say doing your wife. Dot. Doing your son. Right double quotation mark. Will I have to work with any coloreds? Right double quotation mark. I used to work for a maid service and an interviewee actually said, I suppose you guys have a bunch of Mexicans working here? I think that was probably the first time they ever turned someone down. I assume you're talking about the interviewee blowing it, but it actually happened to me the other way around. I walked into the job interview, and the first words out of the interviewer's mouth were, "You're too pretty to be an engineer."